Rhythm and intonation. So let's finish this up. Let's tie all this together. Rhythm is basically like the music of the language. It's the beats, right? You listen to one song, it might be dun, 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 dun. You listen to another song, it might be dun, 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 dun. Okay? So it doesn't work exactly like music necessarily, but it's sort of the musicality of the language. So if you speak Brazilian Portuguese, or you have heard Brazilian Portuguese, if you haven't, you can look on YouTube for a person speaking Brazilian Portuguese and just listen. It doesn't matter if you understand anything, just listen to how the language flows. It's a very musical language. But all languages have their own type of music and flow, right? And English is no exception. What we were talking about here with the syllables and the stress and the content and the function and all that stuff, that is a big part of the music. And in many languages, we have either stress time or syllable time. And that's going to be a big part of the music. Before we get to this, let's talk about intonation. Intonation is essentially stress, but particularly at the end of the sentence. So this is a big focus of intonation. If I say, I like dogs, I like dogs, I like dogs. So we know this is stress, but we're actually going to drop off the cliff at the very end because this is a statement. That tells you that I'm done with my sentence. If it's a question, do you like dogs? Question mark. Notice, do you like dogs? Or earlier I was saying, eat apple. So you know it's a question just because of that tone. Many languages use that exact same question intonation. There's more to intonation, more things to discuss. We'll save that for a separate video later in the course. But that's what intonation essentially is. Now, stress timed and syllable timed. So English is stress timed. Most languages, as far as I know, have syllables and they have stress. It's more about what is the underlying emphasis that creates the music, okay? So if you speak a syllable timed language like Spanish, all of the syllables will be pretty even. Even if it's stressed, it'll still be pretty even. So if you say, for example, quiero ir a la playa. Okay, as a statement, I know I made that sound like a question. Sorry, there's an O there. Quiero ir a la playa. This means I want to go to the beach. Okay, I want to go to the beach. In each of these words, and let's just zoom in on quiero. We have three syllables, quiero. And the stress is on the e here. Quiero, quiero. Okay, so that's the pattern. Spanish has its own intonation rules, or Spanish has its own stress rules and all that. But each syllable is approximately the same length. So the beats are kind of the same, right? If you're listening to a song and it's like dun, 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 dun. Okay, where a different song, which might be sort of maybe more stress timed, might be more something like dun, 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 dun. You're starting to get the idea here. So quiero, quiero, quiero. Sure, we go up, we make it a little louder, but it's about the same length, right? So each of these would be like dun, dun, dun. Quiero, 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 quiero. More or less, that's roughly speaking. Now, in a stress-timed language like English, if we say, I want to go to the beach. So in English, this is the exact same sentence as the Spanish sentence. Pronoun, function word, not stressed. Verb, stressed. Function word, not stressed. Verb, stressed. Function word, noun. content word. Okay, now all of these happen to be one syllable. Makes it easy. But we're not going to say each of these at the same length. So we're not going to say, right, many English learners will try to say the sentence like, I want to go to the beach. I want to go to the beach. And it's just kind of all flat and everything's about the same length. And that's because either the stress pattern of that language works very differently, or more likely it is a syllable timed or some variation, something that's not stress timed. So how we actually say this, listen to how I pronounce this sentence very naturally. I want to go to the beach. I want to go to the beach. I want to go to the beach. So there's this different music to it. Dun 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 dun. Dun 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 dun. Okay? Now you also know I was actually saying wanna, which is about connections and linking. So we'll talk very briefly about that in a second when we get done here. And this T, if you were able to hear it, it was actually more of a D sound, which seems confusing, but there's actually very consistent rules for that. It's not complicated. We'll talk about that when we talk about the T sound later, or the letter T spelling. Lastly, right, so we have the content words, the function words, and I also have this word reduction. So in a stress time language, it's very important to know the content words and the function words, but it's also very important to know about reductions, because this word here, for example, is supposed to be pronounced two, right? That's the full pronunciation, just like the number two, just spelled T-W-O, and just like this word, T-O-O, meaning also, I like it, too, I like it also. So this word is supposed to be pronounced the same, but this particular word almost always gets reduced to T, which is a schwa sound, and don't worry about that right now. But same thing with this too, although it'd actually be more like duh. And the word the usually reduces to the. Just like I said earlier, the word a usually reduces to if it's the article, not the name of the letter. So that's reductions, and it's a very, very important part of English. Just because something is not stressed doesn't necessarily mean that it will have a reduction. But especially with these function words that are single syllable, they very, very often have a reduction. And the reduction, right, instead of saying to, we say t. It's shorter, it's quieter, it's faster, and it allows us to sort of flow more easily instead of saying, I want to go to the beach. Sorry, I want to go to the beach. I want to go to the beach. Even trying to speak with my native sounds and not trying to sound like an English learner, it sounds very strange, and we'd have to take extra time to really hit every single sound. So in order to speak more quickly and to use this stress on stress pattern in English, oftentimes we'll get reductions. So that's what that is about. We'll learn a lot more about that as we go through the course, especially when we talk about the vowel sound called the schwa. Schwa. That's the sound Lastly, we have our connections, commonly referred to as linking. I like to use the word connections because I just like that, but this is about moving sounds, blending and dropping between words. Occasionally, some of these rules can apply inside of a word, but usually we're focused on between words. So when we saw want to, this often becomes wanna. That's not a W. This often becomes wanna. That's how we would spell it. You're never supposed to write that. It looks very informal, but if we were to write it, this is how a native speaker would naturally write it, but it's just wa, na. So the basic sounds, instead of w, a, n, t, u, we actually get w, a, n, t, u. And that looks horrible. But wanna, wanna. So there are quite a few rules for connections and linking. We're not going to talk about any of them here, but what I mean by moving sounds, so you know what I'm talking about when I talk about that. If I say, I like it, we don't say, I like it, I like it. We say, I like it, I like it. So it actually sounds like the K moves over and we get like like it, like it, like it. That's not too complicated. There are some general rules that will cover most cases, but then there are some specific rules, and we'll go through that in their own videos later. Blending would be when two sounds blend together and become a new sound. So it's very common, for example, if I say that and you. So for example, I think that you are smart, right? If I happen to say those words. So we have these two words, the t and the y will usually very often combine, they'll blend into ch. And this is because the position of t in your mouth, well, the position in English, which is probably a little different than your language, we have t, t. And then the y is right here, y, y. So this is your front teeth and the top of your mouth. T, y. If you try to say that really fast, tia, 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 ch, 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 and we end up getting the ch sound. So the t disappears, the y disappears, and we just get ch. So that's an example of blending. And then dropping would be when a sound disappears. So again, we saw that with wanna, where the T sound in here actually disappeared. And that's actually a pretty consistent rule, which we'll talk about later. But sometimes sounds might disappear, and that's how that works. So this is the essence of English pronunciation and ear training in terms of all the knowledge you need to know, all the keywords and concepts you need to know. Much of this will also apply to other languages, but of course we're focused specifically on English. Now, as I said, as we go through this course, you will get lots of reinforcement on many of these concepts, and I'm also going to encourage you to try to compare English, how English works in these ways, to your language. And that's actually one of the best things you can do to improve both your pronunciation and your ears, to open up your ears to the sounds and the flow of English, because you already know how your language works. You're just not conscious of it unless you really paid attention in school. And even then, you probably didn't study much about pronunciation. So when we're talking about particular vowel sounds, I'll show you how you can sort of find and compare the sounds in your language that you just naturally make. Same thing with the consonant sounds, and I'll talk about some common ways that English learners tend to pronounce certain sounds, and you might pronounce it that way, so you will know how to adjust and all these things. So we're going to have lots of different activities and exercises and videos about, the knowledge of, this is how you make that sound, this is how you make whatever sound, and we will see all of this again. So that'll be it for today's video. I know it was a little bit long, but this is very, very, very important stuff, and you might want to watch it again later, and anything that was confusing might make some more sense. Again, we are going to see a lot of these things throughout the course, so don't worry about it too much. But if you have any questions, comments, leave them down below. Hit that like button, subscribe so you never miss a video in this pronunciation course or any other English Hacks videos, and I'll see you guys next time.